My family used me as an ATM for months to support my parasite brother. But when I caught them planning to steal $3,000 for a fake vacation, I recorded everything and exposed them to the entire family, destroying their reputation forever. I'm 25 years old. I work in tech, making good money, and I need to tell this story because basically my family used me as a human ATM for months until I decided to get revenge in a way that was probably petty, but, you know, totally deserved. I guess I should start from the beginning. When my parents convinced me to move back into their house about a year and a half ago, although looking back, I should have seen it coming because they've always had their favorites and, spoiler alert, that favorite has never been me. The thing is, I had been living on my own since I finished college, had my own apartment, paid for my stuff, like I was a normal functioning adult, you know? But then my parents invited me to dinner, which they didn't do very often, to be honest. And during dinner, my mom started with the speech about how family needs to stick together, that I was spending so much money on rent when I could be saving if I lived with them again, that they missed me and it would be nice to have me home again. My dad nodded at everything she said, adding comments like, "Think about all the money you could save, son. You could buy a house in a few years if you don't waste your money on rent." And I, like an idiot, thought maybe they had a point, that maybe it would be good to save more. Plus, my mom kept insisting they missed me, and who doesn't want to feel like their family actually wants them back? You know what I mean? What they didn't mention at that dinner, or rather what they deliberately omitted, is that my older brother Shane, who's 27, still lived with them and basically did nothing with his life. Shane left his last job like 3 years ago. I'm not exaggerating. 3 full years without working, and my parents just supported him like it was nothing. I knew he lived there, obviously, but I had no idea of the magnitude of the situation until I moved back in. So I packed my stuff, left my apartment, and moved back into my childhood bedroom, which, by the way, my parents had. I turned into a storage room, so I had to spend a whole weekend taking out boxes and old furniture to be able to fit my bed. My parents said I would only pay a symbolic rent, like $400 a month, and help with groceries from time to time. It sounded reasonable, honestly. The first month everything seemed fine. I paid my rent, bought food when it was my turn, and tried not to get too involved in the house dynamics because, you know, I had been living alone and getting used to living with my parents again was weird. But then I started noticing things. Shane never bought groceries, never paid for anything, but suddenly he had a brand new PlayStation 5 inches his room. And when I say suddenly, I mean it literally appeared out of nowhere because those things were super hard to get at the time and cost like $500 or more. I asked Shane where he got it from, and he just shrugged and said, Mom and Dad bought it for him as a birthday present, even though his birthday had been months ago. Okay, I thought, maybe it's a late gift or something. Not my problem. Then my mom started asking me for more money for groceries. First it was like, hey Blake, could you give an extra $100 this month because prices are really high? And I said yes because, well, prices were going up, and I made good money. It wasn't going to kill me to give $100 extra. But then it was $100 every week. And then it was, we need help with the electricity bill, we need help with water, we need help with internet. Every time, it was something new. And I kept paying because my parents presented it as if it were temporary, as if things were tough at the moment but would soon improve. One day I came home from work, and Shane was wearing a new Apple Watch. An Apple Watch. The most expensive model. I asked him where he got it from, and he told me, with the most casual face in the world, that Dad bought it for him because he needed one to exercise. To exercise. This guy who hadn't worked in 3 years and spent all day in his room playing video games needed an $800 Apple Watch to exercise. And when I asked my dad about it, he told me Shane was trying to improve his health, and it was important to support him in that. I was like, seriously? And where did the money come from for that if you're always asking me for more money? My mom pulled me aside and told me not to cause problems, that Shane was going through a difficult time trying to find work, and they just wanted to help him feel better about himself. I told her I also went through difficult times when I started working, and nobody bought me $800 things, and she responded with that voice of, "You've always been stronger than your brother. You don't need the same kind of support he does." which was basically her way of saying Shane was her spoiled baby, and I was the son who could manage on his own. So I didn't deserve the same treatment. By the 4th month of living there, I was basically paying $1,200 a month between rent, groceries, bills, and all the extra little things my parents asked me for. $1,200. That was more than what I paid when I lived alone in my own apartment. And meanwhile, Shane kept getting new things. First it was Bose wireless headphones, then a gaming chair of those that cost like $600, then designer clothes. All gifts from my parents, according to him. That's when I started connecting the dots. My parents hadn't asked me to move back because they missed me, or because they wanted me to save money. They had asked me to come back because they needed my money to keep financing Shane's lifestyle. I was literally their additional source of income, so they could keep spoiling my unemployed brother without having to tell him to get a real job. When I realized that, I confronted my parents one night during dinner. I told them directly, "You're using me to pay for Shane's stuff, right?" My mom put on that offended face she always puts on when she gets caught at something and started with, "How can you think that of us? We're your family. All the money goes to the house. We're all in this together." But I didn't believe them anymore. I said, "If all the money goes to the house, then why does Shane have all those expensive new things while I'm paying more than when I lived alone?" My dad tried to intervene, saying I was being dramatic and that Shane needed those things for his mental well-being while looking for work, which made me laugh because Shane wasn't looking for work. He wasn't even pretending to look for work. Shane was at the table too and had the nerve to tell me I was being selfish, that family is supposed to support each other and that he would do the same for me if our situations were reversed. I told him, "Shane, you don't have a job, you don't have money, you literally can't do anything for anyone because you don't contribute anything. So don't give me that crap about you do the same for me." That escalated quickly and he started yelling at each other, him saying I'd always been a horrible and selfish brother, me telling him he was a parasite who took advantage of our parents, my parents trying to calm the situation but basically defending Shane and everything. The straw that broke the camel's back was a week later, when I came home and found the common area a total mess. There were dirty dishes everywhere, trash on the floor, stains on the couch, and Shane was there lying around playing video games like nothing. I asked him who was going to clean all that, and he said probably Mom would do it later. I told him he had made the mess so he should clean it, and he laughed and said he didn't have time for that because he was in the middle of an online match. This guy, no job, no responsibilities, didn't have time to clean his own mess. I exploded. I yelled at him that he was useless, that our parents had ruined his life by spoiling him so much that at 27 he should be ashamed of himself. He got up and started yelling at me too, saying I was a stuck-up jerk who thought I was better than everyone just because I had a job. Our parents came because of all the noise, and guess who they defended? That's right, Shane. My mom told me to stop attacking my brother, that he was doing his best, that I should be more understanding, and something in me broke in that moment. I told them I was leaving, that I wasn't going to keep being their money source to support Shane. My mom immediately changed her tone and started with, "You can't leave. We need you here. We're a family." Notice how she didn't say we're going to miss you or we want you to stay. She said we need you, because what they really needed was my money. My dad tried to block my bedroom door while I was packing my stuff, telling me I was being irrational and that I should at least wait until the end of the month to leave. I told him to get out of my way or I'd call the police, and he finally let me pass. I called my friend Trevor and explained the situation, and he told me I could stay on his couch as long as I needed. I packed everything I could in my car, left the house keys on the kitchen table, and left while my mom yelled at me from the door that I was an ungrateful and selfish son. Shane was standing behind her with his arms crossed, looking at me with that superiority face, like he had won something. I stayed on Trevor's couch for like 2 months while looking for a new apartment. It was humiliating, honestly, having to start from scratch again at 25, but Trevor was incredible. He never made me feel like a burden and even helped me look for places to live. Eventually, I found a decent apartment, moved in, and started rebuilding my life again. My parents called me from time to time asking for money, always with some emergency excuse, but I never answered them. I blocked them on my phone after the 5th call. Like 6 months went by and I was living my best life. Honestly, I had my own space. I was saving real money. I had gotten a promotion at work. And then my mom sent me a message from a different number, one I hadn't blocked yet, saying we needed to talk, that a lot of time had passed and family should stick together. I ignored her at first, but she kept insisting, sending messages almost every day about how they missed me and wanted to fix things. I finally answered and told her I had no interest in talking to them again after how they had used and treated me. She responded with a long message about how she never wanted things to end this way, that she loved me and wanted us to be a family again. And then, here comes the good part. She proposed that we take a family vacation together to reconnect. She said they had been saving money and wanted to take me to a luxury resort in the Bahamas for a week, all paid for, just to spend quality time together and fix our relationship. I was super skeptical, obviously, but she kept insisting, sending me photos of this incredible resort, telling me they had already reserved the dates and just needed me to confirm I could go. She said they would pay for everything: flights, hotel, food, everything, that I just had to show up. And a small part of me, the stupid part that still wanted to believe that maybe my parents really wanted to fix things, considered saying yes. But then something made me suspicious. I called my mom to talk about the trip details, and she put the phone on speaker without telling me. I could hear Shane and my dad in the background, and at one point my mom thought she had put the phone on mute, but she hadn't, and I heard them talking to each other. Shane said something like, "Do you think he'll really fall for this?" And my dad responded, "If he's dumb enough to pay, then yes." My mom laughed and said, "We just have to convince him to book the flights and hotel on his card because our credit is maxed out, and then we'll see what excuse we give him to never pay him back." I froze listening to this. I literally was speechless. They were planning for me to pay for the whole trip, and then they would make up some excuse to never reimburse me. It was basically the same scheme they had used when I lived with them, but on a much larger scale, because a trip for 4 people to the Bahamas with a luxury hotel would easily cost $8,000 or $10,000, maybe more. My mom realized the phone wasn't on mute and quickly said, "Okay, son, so we'll talk about it later," and hung up. But I had already heard enough. And in that moment, I decided that not only was I not going to fall for their trap, but I was going to give them a taste of their own medicine. I was going to get revenge, and the revenge was going to be sweet. I told them yes. I told them I would love to go to the Bahamas with them, that I really appreciated that they wanted to fix things, and that I was happy to book everything because I had frequent flyer points or something I could use. My parents were thrilled. My mom sending me messages all the time about how happy she was that we could be a family again. I played along perfectly, asking them what dates worked best for them, what kind of rooms they wanted, whether they wanted ocean view or garden view. I booked the trip. I found an incredible 5-star resort in Nassau, with private beach, gourmet restaurants, spa, the whole thing. I booked the most expensive room they had, a giant family suite with private jacuzzi and huge balcony. I paid for first-class flights, for private transfers from the airport to the hotel, for the all-inclusive food and drink plan. The total was like $12,000. $12,000. But here's the twist. I only booked all that for me. One person. Just me. For my family. I did something different. I designed fake plane tickets that looked super legit, with the airline logo and everything. I made them for a flight that supposedly left at 10 inches the morning from our local airport. I sent them the tickets by email, telling them to print them and take them to the airport. I also sent them a fake hotel confirmation that looked real, with a fake confirmation number and everything. Here's the thing. I booked my real flight to leave at 6 inches the morning that same day. I told my parents my flight left earlier because I had gotten a better rate, but that we would see each other at the hotel. They said, "Perfect, see you there." The day of the trip arrived. I got up super early, took my real first-class flight, arrived in the Bahamas, and checked into my incredible suite. Meanwhile, my parents and Shane arrived at the airport at 9 inches the morning for their 10 o'clock flight. They got in line, presented their fake tickets, and obviously the people at the counter told them those tickets didn't exist in the system, that they were fake. I wasn't there to see the scene, but I imagine it perfectly. My mom probably panicked. My dad probably got furious. Shane was probably confused. They tried to call me, but I had put my phone on airplane mode as soon as I got on my flight. They sent me like 50 messages that I didn't see until hours later. Messages from my mom saying something was wrong with the tickets, that the airline said they were fake, that they urgently needed help. Messages from my dad saying this wasn't funny and to call immediately. Messages from Shane calling me everything. I was on the beach drinking a mojito when I finally checked my phone. I sent them a simple message. Enjoy the airport. I'm enjoying the Bahamas. The week I spent alone at that resort was honestly one of the best weeks of my life. I didn't have to worry about anyone else. I didn't have to deal with family drama. Just me, the beach, incredible food, and total peace. I went to the spa, went snorkeling, took a catamaran tour, ate at all the resort restaurants. I lived like a king for a full week. Meanwhile, my parents and Shane were going crazy trying to contact me. They left voicemails, sent emails, tried to call me from other people's numbers, some messages. Were threatening. Others were pitiful, trying to make me feel guilty. Shane even sent me a message saying this was unnecessary cruelty and that I was a psychopath. Which, coming from him, was pretty ironic considering he had lived off my money without feeling even a little bit guilty. I came back home after my incredible week, tanned and relaxed. Literally the day I arrived, my parents and Shane showed up at my apartment. I don't know how they got my new address, but there they were, banging on my door like crazy. When I opened, my mom immediately started yelling at me about how I had humiliated them, how they had spent hours at the airport trying to solve the fake ticket problem, how Shane had to borrow money so they could get back home. My dad was red with fury, telling me I owed them $12,000 because they had planned those vacations and I had ruined everything. Shane was standing there with his arms crossed, saying I was the worst person he knew and that I deserved bad things to happen to me. I let them vent for like 5 minutes, just watched them yell, and then I took out my phone. I played them the audio, the full audio of when my mom called me, and I heard them planning how they were going to trick me into paying for everything and never reimburse me. I had recorded that call at the time, obviously, because I knew I was going to need it. All three of them went silent when the audio started playing of Shane saying, "Do you think he'll really fall for this?" And my dad responding, "If he's dumb enough to pay, then yes." The silence after the audio ended was glorious. My mom tried to say I had taken things out of context, that they actually were going to pay me back but were joking at that moment. My dad said recording that call was illegal, which isn't true in our state, but whatever. Shane didn't say anything, because I think he finally realized there was no way to defend themselves from something like that. I told them to leave my apartment and never come back, that if they tried to contact me again, I was going to upload that audio to the internet so everyone would know what kind of people they were. My mom started crying, saying I was destroying our family, and I told her they had destroyed our family long before when they decided to use me as their personal ATM. They left, finally, but not before my dad told me I was going to regret this, that family is forever, and someday I was going to need their help. I told him I'd rather live on the street than ask them for help, ever. I thought that was going to be the end of everything, but no. About 2 weeks later, I started getting messages from uncles, aunts, cousins, all asking me why I had been so cruel to my parents, why I had tricked them and left them stranded at the airport, why I was so selfish and ungrateful. My parents had been calling the whole extended family, telling them their version of the story, obviously omitting the part where they planned to use my money without my consent. And that's when I decided enough was enough of playing defense. I wrote a long post on Facebook explaining the whole situation from the beginning. I started with how my parents convinced me to move back home, only to use me financially to support Shane. I explained how every cent I paid went directly to buying expensive things for my unemployed brother. I told the part about the fake vacation and how I heard their plan to scam me. And at the end of the post, I attached the full audio of that phone call. The post exploded. I'm not exaggerating. Within hours, I had hundreds of comments from friends, acquaintances, and even extended family members. Most were on my side, saying I did the right thing, that my parents deserved it, that Shane needed to get a real job. Some of my cousins commented that they had also noticed how my parents favored Shane all their lives, and they had always thought it was unfair. Even a couple of uncles commented that they had also had problems with my parents asking them for borrowed money and never paying them back. There were some negative comments, mainly from older family members saying, "You shouldn't air your dirty laundry in public, that this was a private family matter," that I was being immature by venting everything on social media. But honestly, I didn't care, because the truth was already out there, and they couldn't control the narrative anymore. My parents went crazy. My mom called me from another new number crying hysterically, telling me her reputation was ruined, that everyone in the family and her friends now thought they were horrible people, that I needed to take down that post immediately. I told her no, that they had been perfectly happy ruining my life financially and emotionally, so now they could live with the consequences of their actions being public. My dad showed up again at my apartment with Shane, this time calmer, trying to negotiate. They said if I took down the post, they would leave me alone forever, that they would never bother me again for money or anything. I told them that wasn't enough, that they owed me years of manipulation and exploitation, and the post was staying up because people deserved to know the truth about them. Shane finally spoke and told me all this was my fault, that if I had been a better brother and more understanding of his situation, none of this would have happened. I told him his situation was that he was a lazy adult who had chosen not to work for years while living off other people's money, and if anyone was to blame for this situation, it was him for being a parasite and our parents for allowing it. I made one last post on Facebook like a week later. It was short and simple. I said that after thinking about it a lot, I had decided to cut all contact with my parents and my brother permanently, that it wasn't a decision I was taking lightly, but it was necessary for my mental health and financial well-being, that I wished them the best, but didn't want to be part of their lives ever again. And then I blocked all three of them on all social media, changed my phone number, and asked my building manager to put them on a list of people who couldn't enter. It's been like 8 months since all that. I haven't talked to any of them since then. Some family members still try to contact me from time to time, asking me to reconsider. That family is important, that I should forgive and forget. But I'm fine without them, honestly. I'm saving more money than ever. Got another promotion at work, bought myself a new car, and I'm considering finally buying a house next year. Do I feel bad about what I did? Not really. Was it petty and a bit vindictive? Yes, absolutely. Did they deserve it? 100%. They used me, manipulated me, and planned to scam me out of thousands of dollars, and when I finally caught them and gave them a taste of their own medicine, they acted like I was the villain of the story. The only thing I regret is not realizing sooner what they were doing and not leaving their house earlier. Last week, Trevor asked me if I would ever consider talking to them again, like in a few years when everything has calmed down. Part of me thinks maybe someday, if they really change and apologize sincerely, I could consider at least listening to them. But another bigger part of me knows people like that don't change, that if I give them a chance, they're just going to try to manipulate me again eventually. For now, I'm happy keeping my distance and living my life without that weight on my shoulders. And that's enough for now, I guess.